Hey guys, I want to go ahead and talk to you about mastering your PR. And by PR, I mean your media appearances, your media input, your media agenda, and how to get on said media without spending money for a large PR firm or large management services, large media company, media group, such as ours. There are tons of ways to do it. And it is a process. What you're paying for in those groups is their connection. You're paying for their influence inside of that said industry. So I'm going to go ahead and break down different ways to get yourself media attention without spending money. And that is usually key when you're dealing with writers because, well, writers, we are poor folk. And most writers are hungry for the money, and especially businesses and business growth, and all of this can be used, can benefit from these techniques and these strategies. So the first thing you have to know when you start reaching out towards media is a press release. Okay, those of you who are on video right now, and those of you who are on audio, you kind of get a little bit of the short and tail. The press release is broken down to a few sections. You have the first section, which would be your overall date. The date, obviously, is the date of the release, unless there's an embargo on it. An embargo is a hold on journalism if a journalist tends to pick it up. The embargo does not allow release towards that date, release until that set date of in the future, which is the embargo held on the release. A little trick to grab journalist attention, which is, I don't know how huge of a sklumakel this is. I just made up a word for you. So there you go, sklumakel, word of the day. So I don't know how big of an issue this is. Having an embargo, if you date it towards a day or two after you are presenting this to a potential journalist or written content outlet, if you have a short window that builds a sense of urgency, the sense of urgency may allow them to pick it up if it's worth writing about. So just to dig into a press release real fast, I don't want to get too into it because this could take forever to do that, and I don't want to be sitting here talking about just a press release because there's a lot to cover. So your first sections could be your date, boom. Your next one will be your headline. The headline of a media release should summarize the key points. It's your hook, it's your catch, the reason why they want to keep reading, which if you're a business and you're releasing a new product, you have a big staff change, you guys want an award, or you're launching something big like a website or service and so on, that would be mentioned in your hook. If you're a writer, a unique twist, a book coming out, a big blog, something you have that caught traction, there's a lot you need to cipher and comb through to decide whether or not it's worth writing about, because that's initially what they look for. If I am a journalist and I want to put my name on content that is about you and what you're doing, if it's not interest worthy, I'm not going to write about it. I'm not going to take the time to get my followers, pitch it to papers, pitch it to magazines, or bring it to my editors. I'm not going to do that if it's not worth reading. So if it's not worth reading, it's not worth writing. Make it interesting. Something that grabs their attention. And this should be in bold. Make sure that you have this in big, bold letters. Bold grabs and attracts and also helps the SEO. Then right after that headline would be your lead. Always start the lead with the town and city it's in. Town or city it's in. So for me, Write It Out Radio, Seneca, Missouri, which is where our studio is located. So that's a way to start that lead. I always bold and italicize it, or just italicize it rather, sorry. Italicize it, little dash into the meat of your story. Don't make this lengthy, all right? Don't make it too much to bite off. Give them the sense of inquiry, because if they do decide to pick up the story, you want to write most of the good stuff for them without writing the whole article. All right, because journalists have a lot to do. There's a lot to cover, and a journalist is constantly on the move. Quick pitches like this, especially for businesses, they love a good business piece. And this also goes towards your media. If you're going to go on TV or radio, podcast, digital radio, you have to not drag out the booker or producer's time by just throwing tons of content. Don't overwrite. If you are a business owner, you don't know how to do a press release, hit us up at writeitoutradio@gmail.com. We'll help you out. We'll work with you and show you how it's done, how to write a good press release. We've written tons of them for different businesses, and I'm a writer by trade, so I kind of write press releases, kind of a thing. So, the lead has the story hook, not your key point hook. This is just another grab for the journalist. You have their attention, now you have an intent. You know what I mean? The headline will grab their attention, the lead will give them intent to write the story. So this section includes the who, what, when, where, why, and it's longer than the hook. It's more than just a title or headline. After that, go into your body. This paragraph should expand on the lead paragraph, the lead section. So your body, you'll go date, headline, lead, body. Your body is just an extension of that lead paragraph. I mean, like a follow-off. Don't leave a word, ... break it down, you know, a space or two, and then blah. Don't do that crap. It's stupid. Make it its own entity. Give them the reason to read it. This is where you kind of get into more key points. A reason to link. Linking is very important for these things, especially if you're doing a distribution, an aggregator, such as all these other sites, which we get into. Start with the most information and work your way to the least important information. All right, get them interested. If it's too lengthy, which it tends to happen sometimes, even if it's a big, if it's a big story and you have a lot to entail, it's gonna drag. So make sure you lead with the important one, and if they decide not to grab it, you know, if they decide to grab it, they'll grab it on that premise and work their way around. They're the journalist, they're the writer, they know what they're doing. Quoting. If you are in your site, having a quote really does help. I always quote somebody when we do our press releases. Either it's a direct quote that I've said, or the writer who's writing my press release has a quote, or, you know, somebody within our production, or somebody within a business partner, or within the production part of the business I was involved in. We will always quote somebody. Try quoting the upper echelon. It helps. It's not unheard of for media to call and verify your sources. That's why it's important to properly cite them. Don't misquote if it's that important. If I'm going to quote my director and I completely misquote it, and my director receives the call from the journalist, there goes that press release and possibly the ability to trust you in future press releases. So don't burn that bridge before you even build it. After the body, the end. The last paragraph is the least important of the information, right? So this can summarize your release and include any background information you feel is needed, only if it's needed. All right, don't just drag in meat. So and always finish the release with, it's called end marks. So the journalist knows it's finished. What I mean by end marks is, it's not within the paragraph. It'll be centered, maybe 2 or 3 spaces down. Hashtag, or #, as I know them, or end quotes. The 3 pound signs or hashtags if you're younger than I am, which is most of my viewers, because I'm getting old and it sucks. But the 3 hashtags symbolizes to the journalist that that is the end of the press release, and then below that would be any contact information for further stuff: name, email, phone number, and your boilerplate, which is the little information about the business. You should have one already in emails if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, startup, solo service, writer. You should have a boiler. Just have one. It looks super duper professional. Now, we got the press release down. The media kit is a lot of the same thing. In your media kit, it's usually for influencers, like books and stuff you're trying to get on TV. Those are the best grab and best cause for attention because it has your picture, it has little pretty things you've done, and it's all digital, so it's all good stuff. Here is where people mess up. No one comes out the gate, well, very rarely, I don't say no one because it has happened, very rarely do people come out the gate swinging wild and hitting home runs every time, getting knockouts or TKOs or, you know, takedowns, whatever sport you follow. So always start off small, especially when you're doing your media tour and your release tour for like a book or a startup company. Unless you have high capital, there's tons of ways to do this. All right, don't expect to jump on a huge media channel right out the gate. It's very seldom that happens. Companies and businesses usually have a better chance of it. Writers, unless you're backed and have a large capital and just know the right people, it's damn near impossible. Just because there's so many writers, and we've given out statistics before in other shows, in other episodes of the exact statistics as to how many publishing, you know, ventures there has been this year. So that could be a good reason why, and I'm sure that there's no argument on that point. But so here's how you start. Start local. Go to your local TV stations. Go to their websites. There's usually a be a guest slot link. If not, use what's called a query code. Query. God, what's the word? The quotation marks. There's a whole thing for it. Put in quotations on like a Google search. Be a guest. And outside of the quotation marks before those words would be TV or TV show or radio show. Start local always. It's easier to get on locally. Start with your inner city, especially if you're a small town like us. Inner city works. Good way to grow from there. Then branch out to more of a statewide, larger city areas, and that gets you more of a national agenda structure. It gives you more of a foundation to build your strategy for nationals. If you are a writer, podcasts are just as known as, are just as effective for outreach as radio and TV. And don't forget those. A lot of people just seem to want to jump on a TV show and jump in visual media and kind of run with it. Don't do that. You know, that's not the way to go. And if you have a good grab towards TV and you really plan on jumping your media, make sure you have everything you need to go. If you have a book, a book coming up, a release coming up, make sure you have a date for it. Make sure you have teasers, content, trails, stuff they could build a promotional kit off of, something they can market off of to build their viewership and build their numbers. That's what it's all about for them. That's numbers for their sponsors. There's a lot of digital press release sites. Here is the pros and cons of that. Not all of them are as friendly for media to grab. What I mean by that is it may go to an actual press release area of a website and it will be posted. That's not exactly where people are looking. All right, journalists don't jump to that spot and go, that's the one. No, they usually have contacts. There's a way to go about it, writing the editor. You know, there's a whole system to that. But don't deter yourself from releasing a digital press release. Doing that will build your SEO. So if someone does accept your press release and want to really look into you, Election Media Kit, they're going to look into you. They're going to Google you. They're going to research you. Your SEO builds towards your ranking. How well you do during a search in a search engine organically without having to pay. Or the closer you get to number one. That's important stuff, and also helps your business, your book, and it helps you become more organically searchable. It gets you build a demographic, get a better readership. There's a lot to it. So those press releases are really good for it. They are super duper uber expensive. They are a lot of money if you don't know what you're doing. You could always go to like Cision and all these other PR sites that are really well known that you could put your stuff into and get yourself out there and get your SEO built real well. It's going to cost though. A lot of times they have one free trial It doesn't grab. It doesn't go as far. It's a teaser. It's a hook. They want to get you. The best thing to do is build a good PR, build a good press release, and go through other options. Personally, send them for journalists. There's a way to find journalists. You know, there's social media now. Go look for them. Make sure your social media is on point, and make sure your websites are on point. Make sure you are official before you do your press release. A lot of people say that the press release section is too costly. We went ahead and gathered 78 different sites that are absolutely free to use and do have a good effect. Now we're not going to go ahead and go through all those 78. That'd be crazy. But luckily, we do have that Patreon account. If you go ahead and sign up for our Patreon accounts, and it's super cheap a month, very super cheap, you get this whole 78 list for good forever from our feed, including all cool videos and photos from our, behind the scenes stuff, and updates as to what's going on with the show. So go check out our Patreon. The link's below. It's patreon.com/writeitoutradio. The link will be in the description. The link is on our webpage. The link is on these posts in social media, in our audio distributors. So the link is everywhere. You can find the Patreon link. Go support us. Check it out. You'll get some really cool information. There's a lot of stuff we grabbed from here. As far as press release and how to get on a good media station. Podcasts, a lot of people will have issues finding who to talk to. Where do I go? Also, within our information, we have, I call it the golden site. We have a contact in there that is guaranteed to get you on podcasts, usually really, really good ones, free. Ta-da! So it is a free, they do have a free site. Now there are some upgrades and bumps and stuff like that you can do. This is a really good site to go on. I've used it personally. I still use it, but it's only for the Patreon. So you see what we're trying to get people to do. I got bills to pay and mouths to feed, and we have a sponsor coming on soon, which will be announced, I believe, in our Sunday episode. We'll be announcing the sponsor officially. So thank you to them. But it is also important that you guys come on Patreon and get all the cool stuff that, we have, all the research. We get too much research to talk on the air, but you guys get all of it, all of the cool research stuff, all these links. We have 78 of them right now, and that's not including the, I think, 100-page document that we created during this research, which took us forever to do, of all kinds of cool things that build SEO and help you go towards media. So you won't be blind towards that media outlet no more anymores. But build small, start small, build up, hit the podcast, hit the local places, collaborate with people. That usually helps. Scratch your back, I scratch mine type stuff. Don't leave yourself out as to ways to grow. Media does make a difference. It really does. A podcast, even with a podcast with a very small viewership, it still is a viewership that you may not have had before, as far as demographic for potential, customer acquisition or conversion for your book sale. Don't leave those out. Those are important as well. I'll give you one of these sites just to start off something fun. NPR.org. That's a good one. NPR is a very well-known name. Everyone knows it. They have a free submission area. Kind of got to do a little digging for it, but it is there. It's a pain in the butt, and it's widely distributed if they accept it. This is NPR, guys. NPR.org is a real hardcore, spot for media, and they run a lot of big name shows. So we have that. There's a little taste, but we have that link that will help podcasts and radio shows find you. So it's a little less work you got to do. So check out the Patreon. Check out our Facebook group, our Facebook page at facebook.com/write.it.out.radio. We have a group, a Write It Out Radio group. If you guys are interested in joining a free group, get on there, post what you guys got, interact. I want to see what you guys can do. Business entrepreneurs, got questions, ask them. We are going to start our actual schedule next week, where we have lessons Monday, on air Wednesday, lessons live Friday, scam alert Saturday, which we are hoping to get out next week, scam alerts, and Sunday will be the weekly update with the week coming up. We have some really cool stuff going with you guys, so stay tuned, check it out, and keep on writing.